What is up, guys, and welcome to the special World Cup qualifier preview episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, here we are, wrapped up again in the Paraguay in the Ave Roja, because obviously we have another World Cup qualifier week to come up, the last one of 2024, guys. I'm actually really sad that it's actually coming to an end for this year, and we won't have another one for a couple of months, but nevertheless, two big games for Paraguay, probably the most difficult of the Alfaro era so far, because obviously we're on a high. Paraguay are obviously on a high of unbeaten run since Alfaro has taken charge, 2 wins, 2 draws from their 4 games. But then comes a big one. There comes 2 big ones, really. And I think this is really going to be a test of how good Paraguay can be, to qualify for the World Cup, because, they're right there. They're just there. If the World Cup qualifiers do end today, Paraguay would be in a spot to qualify, but there's still a lot of games left to be played. A big game against Argentina at the Defensores del Chaco, one of the more entertaining games of any South American countries, fixtures and run of games. And then all the way to Bolivia and Alto, one of the most difficult places to play football anywhere in the world, maybe the most difficult. So Paraguay have a really big task ahead of them, and I'm really excited to discuss it with both you guys, to see what you guys think of the squad, how we might fare up against these two teams, because it's really a big test of wit for this Paraguay team to see how good they are and if they are ready to make that big jump to qualify for the World Cup here in North America. But let's go straight into it. Let's go to someone right now in Paraguay that obviously, is starting to feel the mood. Obviously we've had the attention of, the local league and, everything else going on in Paraguay at the minute. But I want to go to Fede first, because Fede, obviously it is a big week. We are speaking literally 3 days before that game against Argentina. It's going to be sold out. It's going to be a packed house. It's going to feel like one of these old Paraguay games of before. And I think it's always special to play against Argentina, more so when it's the current Copa America and the world champions. But I don't think Paraguay are going to let that intimidate them one bit. Even if it is Lionel Messi's last game, possibly in Asunción in his career, it might be a bittersweet moment for a lot of Messi fans out there. But I think those guys that maybe are Messi fans and haven't been following Paraguay, or haven't been too connected to Paraguay because of how poor they've done, they've seen that run of record, and I see a full set of blue and white, not blue, sorry, red and white, not blue and white, over there in Asunción and Sajonia on Thursday. I see a lot of partisan, a partisan crowd with a lot of people wanting the Ave Roja to beat Argentina.
Gonna be a special week, guys. Hey, Roberto. Hey, Ralph. Nice to be back here in Guarani Vision. Definitely got so much to talk about. November is gonna come with many good games for us. I was looking at the calendar, and we got these 2 games for the Ave Roja. We got Olimpia almost being champion here in the local league, as that is on hold. There's gonna be a pause in the local tournament as we head into these 2 games for our national team, and then we're gonna have the Sudamericano final happening here in Asunción. You could already feel that mood of what's going to happen in just a couple of weeks, but this week is going to be very special just because of what you were mentioning. Messi coming down here, Paraguay feeling so good with the confidence, people putting their jerseys back on, just like us. Every opportunity we get when our dear Ave Roja plays, and especially against the world champions, we gotta respect them. They are the world champions. They are the last Copa America champions. Also, this team has looked as one of the best South American teams, and we're gonna have them here at home, where we have not lost under Gustavo Alfaro. So I'm really feeling good about our chances, Roberto. This is a very special preview episode. We got 2 very hard games ahead of us. I don't want this year to be over just because of how well we're doing. I wanted just to keep on going. But yeah, after these 2 games, there's going to be a long pause. And as for surprises, not big ones on this list, not big surprises on the call-ups from Gustavo Alfaro, but we're gonna analyze that. We're gonna talk about everything that could happen and that will happen. I'm actually looking into Rob's predictions again, because he's been hitting it hard. You too, Roberto. You've been hitting it really well lately.
Yeah, pressure on both of us really to get this right again, especially against the 2 most difficult games of the calendar. But yeah, Ralph, I mean, certainly, like Fed had mentioned, I think a lot of Paraguayans are really feeling excited about this one, and they are feeling a bit, sad that, by this time next Tuesday it'll be over. But I think what we want from this Paraguay team, and I think a lot of fans of this team want them to end on a good run. Certainly it's going to be a long wait until March. That's the next set of matches for World Cup qualifying that Paraguay will have to play in. But I think if Paraguay can come in, just to start off with like this kind of debate, like I think if Paraguay can come out of this really difficult combo with them in a position to still qualify. And of course, I think it's going to depend as well as other results happening across the continent, because I think that's going to be a big factor for them as well. I think, with, you know, 12 games left. I mean, there's only been, by the time this ends, it's going to be 12 games that have been done. So that's six more to go. I would say that I feel like Paraguay could be in a position to be comfortable about qualifying, or at least, feel like they're in the driver's seats. Because right now, even though they are in a position to qualify for the World Cup right now, there's still this big gap, or sorry, the small gap between all these teams coming below them and above them. They have Ecuador, who they are level on points with 13, only with goal difference. Bolivia right down below them in the last spot by 1 point. Got Venezuela as well with 2 points behind Paraguay. So, and then they're already in the elimination spot. So I think Paraguay want to be in the position where they want to still feel as if though they're going to feel comfortable about qualifying. But it's coming out of this one, I think, will be a very big test of how good they are and how they can finish the entire rest of the qualifying process.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Roberto. Hi, Fede. That's right. We're ending now what Alfaro's called like the recovery phase. He called these 6 games that he was taking charge in 2024 recovery phase. So these are the last two, and then we go into definition and kind of trying to just get there. And I think if they finish the recovery phase in the spot to qualify, or even in the playoff spot to qualify, then they've kind of done their job for this particular stage of games, and then it really gets into the nitty gritty at the end. But it's interesting, right? Because I think this is the first time, at least since the very early match week, that Paraguay are actually in the position to qualify as they head into the round of games. So that's very nice for them. A bit of a change in mood, and I think it sums up the change that the whole kind of Paraguay squad and the Albiroja has been feeling. I think Isidro Pita was talking about how they feel like they've got their identity back. And a lot of managers have talked about doing this, but no one's really achieved it until now with Alfaro. And so regardless of what happens in these next 2 games, they're definitely in the best position, I would say, kind of mentally, psychologically, than they have been for years. And they're really going to go into this game totally different to the last time Argentina visited, when the Paraguayan FA were actually worried about people showing up in Argentina shirts or Messi, Barcelona shirts with Messi, and wanting just to cheer for Messi and not the national team. That was a real issue the last time this happened. I don't think we have any problem this time. It's a totally different mentality. Paraguay are actually aiming to win 3 World Cup qualifiers at home in a single year for the first time since 2008. And so that's Tata Martino, 2008. We end up going to the World Cup. So this is a real big moment. And I think the whole mood has changed, not just with the squad and the players, but also with the fans as well. And so it's going to be a great game on Thursday night in Defensores del Chaco.
Yeah, and I think, just to close it out here before we go into the squads, and then we'll analyze both games theoretically, I think Fede, I think, Ralph brings up a good point. I think certainly this kind of mentality change has been different. I mean, if you compare, we've done this show for a whole year where we've seen Paraguay go through various different phases. I think this is the most confident Paraguay have been in quite some time, especially given the results that they've been getting. I mean, you feel as if though if they can get these results against Argentina and Bolivia, I mean, look, if they can get 6 points out of them, I mean, that's reaching the highest mountain you can, because you're just beating the world champions, and you've also beaten a team in altitude, which, again, history is also such a big factor on this one. But I would say that if they can come out of this combo with 6 points, there's no stopping them, really. That mentality is just going to be at an all-time high, and their confidence is going to be boosting.
I actually believe we've always had this opportunity to have this level, to play this way, and it was just a matter of things falling into the right place. And thankfully that has happened, obviously after the Copa America, with Gustavo Alfaro coming into that locker room and changing the players' mentality, putting everybody on their right spots and giving everybody the right task on every game. I think that leadership and those right decisions from the coach have just been probably the most important in the sense of changing everything around, really. coming into this game against the world champions. It's probably the best moment to go up against them after this team has shown character and turning that game around against Venezuela. And you obviously look back into that game and you're thinking, is Tony Sanabria going to get more minutes? Are players that really showed up in that second half going to have another spot in this team? You never know, what's going through that Gustavo Alfaro head, because he's a coach that has obviously shown, and I talked about this before, being very flexible tactical wise, and the way that he gets every game prepared. So I'm really looking forward to that. How are you going to stop Messi? How are you going to stop their best players? How are you going to stop this team that really looks like a machine sometimes? Even though they have lost a couple of games, they have looked kind of distracted in certain games during this process. They feel like they're going to the next World Cup. They know that they're going to try to fight the next World Cup again. It's just a matter of building up that team again from Scaloni, who's always putting in young players also in his squad. But we're doing our thing, and as of right now, I think we're looking more into what Paraguay can do in this game as of worried about Argentina, really about the world champions. I think we have more than ever an opportunity to win at home again, just like Ralph was saying. I think from Tata Martino's days, nobody has ever had that confidence with a coach or with a team also into going into a game against Argentina that we really have a shot at winning.
Yeah, and I think, there is that level of history. I mean, Paraguay have done this before. It's not the case of being, oh, it's Argentina, like, it's Messi, it's these players that won all these titles. Like, no, Paraguay have been through these before. Yes, they've had kind of different level of players that maybe have been more close to their level than right now. I mean, obviously we can't compare the level of Paraguay to a world champion, but there is that factor of feeling confident, and more so because of that history. I mean, I can look back, and I'm sure all you guys can remember the famous Paraguay wins against Argentina in Asuncion. I think that's certainly something, or in general, I think that's something that I think a lot of these players have either grown up with or have seen it happen firsthand. A lot of players out there. I'm looking at someone like Angel Romero, for example, who's on this team. He's known what it's like to beat Argentina. Junior Alonso has known, Gustavo Gomez, Almiron. There's been some players that know what it's like to beat Argentina. So it's not something that is something that is on a path of history, or like something that is kind of a weak spot for them. I think it's certainly something that they can use to their advantage. So yeah, it's certainly one to really look forward to. Again, this is the big one that I think Paraguay, their big test of showing how good they are against the rest of the continent. And we'll look at how Paraguay are setting up right now, because like you said, guys, there aren't really a lot of changes. And I think that might be a good thing, because obviously, we've seen in the past Paraguay teams really switch it up a lot. And that's due to obviously their poor form, some players not working. But this time around, for the third straight combo, we get the majority of the players that we've already been accustomed to. And again, it's the whole case of, if you can't change a winning team, you stick with it. There haven't been many changes. I think there's only been one missing player, and that's Hugo Cuenca, which obviously a young kid at Milan. I think he's injured, so that makes sense. But looking at the team right now, I think there's only one name that we have to mention as kind of a surprise. But the goalkeepers is the ones that we've been used to: Gatito Fernandez, Carlos Coronel, Juan Espinola. The defense: Gustavo Gomez, Junior Alonso, Fabián Balbuena, Omar Alderete, Santiago Arzamendia, Gustavo Velázquez, Saúl Salcedo, Juan Cáceres, Agustín Sanders, and a new name, Cesar Almedo of Olimpia. Looking at the midfield: Miguel Almirón, Matías Villasanti, Andreas Cubas, Cacu Romero, Ramón Sosa, Diego Gómez, Damián Bobadilla, and Matías Galarza. And rounding up the forwards: Ángel Romero, Antonio Sanabria, Julio Enciso, Alex Arce, Isidro Pita, and Alfio Oviedo. So yeah, I mean, look, this is the team, Fed. I want to go to you first, that we've been accustomed to, and we have one new name in this one, Cesar Almedo of Olimpia, who's kind of been doing so well for a team that looks likely is going to win the Clausura. He comes in really more as kind of surplus, really, at that right back position, because Juan Cáceres won't be able to play against Argentina due to yellow card accumulation, so he can't play that one. So I'm curious, like, is actually is Alfaro really going to pull out another surprise of, I don't know if he's going to start this one. It would be a really big ask for someone like Cesar Almedo in his first game to be called up and to play this big game against Argentina. But for something, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of involvement of him being there. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think he's gonna play. I'm looking at this team and I'm looking at this squad and I'm thinking, who else can play at that right side, And yeah, it could be Gustavo Velasquez also, who is very accustomed to play against Argentinian players because he plays in Argentina. He has played for several years now. He was also called up with Saul Salcedo, who's a center back, but it could be the opportunity of a lifetime for a player like Cesar Olmedo, right? To go up against the world champions. He's playing for the team that's leading the way in first spot in the local league with Olimpia. He has played really well this year. He has earned his spot, even though he has competition in that spot also. And he's a very interesting player and he's developed really well. And it wouldn't be a surprise in the sense that Alfaro already did this with Juan Cáceres. Nobody had him in the radar and he called him up and he did his thing against Vinicius against Brazil. And we kind of need a player like that again. And he's aggressive, guys. I mean, one-on-one, he doesn't let you get by easily. I mean, he will grab you, he will go up hard on you if he can get if he can get a touch on you. So defensively, I think he's very well. That has probably been the best part of this Olympia in the local league, right? I mean, that side with Olmedo and Rodney Redes. You can't call Rodney Redes because you already have offensive players in this team, even though he has probably been one of the best players in the in that Olympia team. That's not what you need right now. You need a player for Juan Cáceres, and that could be Olmedo. I don't see another right back in the local league, really. I was searching out there also. I don't know if you guys thought of another name that could have popped up in this list, because there was going to be a problem going forward against Argentina, because you can't have Juan Cáceres, who has really been the best right back we've seen lately. He really earned that spot, and now you need a sub, Ralph. You need another player. You have to give somebody an opportunity. So why now a young, just 21-year-old player? Hopefully this doesn't burn his career, obviously, because he's going to have a really hard game if he gets that opportunity to start against Argentina. Do you think he's going to get us an opportunity, or is it going to be somebody else?
It will be a big call for Alfaro, but like we've seen before, he enjoys a gamble, so I wouldn't count it out. And the reason he does, when he calls up players, he's usually calling them up for a specific purpose, not just to cover spaces. I think Olmedo is really interesting. He only made his debut in October of last year, so in first team. So he's only got like maybe 30 league games under his belt. I mean, really a very inexperienced in that kind of way, but he has played for Paraguay at under 20s in the Sudamericano. So I'm assuming he will have played with Diego Gomez there, for example. And so if you're thinking about players that came from that crop and are managing to get their chance, usually they've done quite well. The only other name that could have been from the local league is Alan Nunez, who plays for Cerro, but he's a very attacking right back, and I just don't think you could have risked him in a game like this. So like Fede was explaining, Olmedo is much better defensively, much more compact. But he's also very good technically. He's technically a very good player. He did play in midfield when he was younger. And so I think it's an interesting call up. And honestly, I think he could get the call up, assuming we're not going to go ultra defensive. So if you look at the last two away games we played, we were ultra defensive, but then we went out a bit more at home, including against Brazil. And I feel we'll go a bit more out against Argentina here, which also means, by the way, the last two home games against Argentina, the last two qualifiers were 0-0 draws, right? But it sounds like we're going to push for it and go for it a little bit here. And so Olmedo, he really does have a good chance. And just talking about the squad overall, even though Cuenca's out, Olmedo's in, and so Olmedo is slightly older than Cuenca, the average age is still only like 24 years or something. It's a really young squad. I mean, it continues to be so young. And so that's very interesting that as we talk about the way Alfaro is almost like molding players to the way he wants it to be. And his 27, Roberto's telling me, of like players actually in the starting 11 that have had minutes. And a lot of that, though, is, by the way, driven up by Gatito Fernandez, who's 36, the goalkeeper. But what we see is like overall is this kind of younger squad that Alfaro can kind of manipulate to do what he wants to do in the games. And he's really finding that this is working so far. And I think Olmedo just fits into that pattern of those kind of players he's looking for.
Yeah, and I think now the big one looking into the squad is, we obviously saw in the last game, we saw Antonio Sanabria really making his breakthrough again, again coming off the bench and scoring. I feel like now, and I want to go to Ralph on this one because I think, he's someone that's kind of advocated for Tony to play. Is this his moment again to start? Because, of the goals that he scored, and this is really interesting, of the goals he scored, he's come off the bench. So really it's kind of been, your Pitas, your Arces, even back then with Adam Barreiro or Avalos, that have been playing these games and not really been effective. But when you have someone like Tony Sanabria coming off the bench, he makes that impact. So is it time for him to get that starting role that he has to be the nailed-in starter regardless of what's going on? I know Arce is still scoring goals here and there at Liga de Quito. Pita's doing what he's doing at Cuyaba. Um, and then, I don't think Alfio Oviedo will be ready to start such a big game like this, in at least in Argentina. Maybe in Bolivia that might be a different scenario, but or even Angel Romero, we know he can play in that position if need be, but has to be Tony Sanabria that starts on Thursday, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it could be Tony Sanabria. He's definitely the most all-round best striker we have, right? And for sure, and he proved that with the goals he scored. But when you're going up against, I assume you're going up against Cuti Romero and Lisandro Martinez, two very physical central defenders. I would probably throw in Peter at the start, almost to wear them down, because Peter's going to go toe for toe with them, be in that physical battle. And then maybe in the 60th minute is when you throw in Sanabria to try and do some of his magic. I mean, I can certainly see an argument for Sanabria starting based on the way he played in the last game and the importance of the goals. But I just think the way tactically Alfaro might look at it is put in the big guy, put in Pita to do some of that work he was doing against Brazil as well. Like if you remember, like Gabriel Magalhães in the Premier League is like one of the most physical defenders there is, and he was really like giving him a hard time in that Brazil game. And so I wonder if it's going to be a similar thing, and that opens up the space for Enciso and Diego Gomez. So I would probably see him or expect him to go with Peter, but for sure Sanabria has to play a part. And remember, Sanabria has this big history because of the whole Messi incident last time, where from the TV cameras it looked like he was spitting at Messi, and then afterwards you could tell it was just the camera angle. It wasn't like at Messi, but they had words, words are exchanged, that kind of thing. I don't know if they probably played with each other in Barcelona. I think they would have done sparring or something while Tony was still in La Masia, so they maybe knew who he was. But we'll see. I'm sure Sanabria is going to have a role to play, but I just don't know if it's from the start.
Yeah, I think that's the big task ahead for Gustavo Alfaro. If you put in Tony Sanabria after what he brought to the team in that second half, or if you wait for it and just like Rafa is saying, wear them out with Isidro Pita, who's a more physical player who we know can't take those 90 minutes because he pressures, he does that job and he does it really well. I love that competition that we have going, in between those three forwards now, because Alex Arce got his opportunity. Pita was probably the one that was having the best level in these last couple of games until this last showdown against Venezuela, where Tony Sanabria really picked up the team and took the game over. So I think it is time to ride that wave and go with Tony Sanabria, give him the confidence in front of our crowd. I would love to see him starting this game and just show Argentina that we're gonna put the rules out there and we're gonna try to play our game, that we're not gonna respect them that much. And I would love for that to happen from Gustavo Alfaro, but I don't know if that's going to be the smart decision. This is me thinking more of the heart and not thinking with my head. If he's the coach and he knows what the right strategy is for this game, but I do think both forwards will have the opportunity to play Isidro Pita and Antonio Sanabria. I don't expect Alex Arce to start this game. I don't think it's a game to start with Angel Romero either as a false center forward. So I don't think he's going to go that way. It's going to be Pita or it's going to be Tony Sanabria.
So looking at the team overall, I think we can kind of figure it out, and you guys can jump in whenever you feel like maybe that's not the one to go. But I think we're all in agreement that Gatito will be the goalkeeper. I think, I don't think there's going to be any changes there.
No question.
Yeah, no, I think he's done decently well. I mean, yeah, he did concede that goal against Venezuela, but he's done well. And, I think that's something that, he's not really getting any minutes of Botafogo, but at least he's showing up when necessary to win these games and to get results. Defense, again, I think we're still looking at that question mark. I mean, are you guys going to say, I mean, we still have 3 days left, but is it Olmedo? Is it Velasquez? Is it someone else? What are you seeing in this one? What's your gut feeling say? I'll go to Ralph. What would you want at least for this game?
I think he's going to go with Olmedo. I think he'll go with Olmedo because we're going to talk about left back, I assume, and I think he'll stick with Junior Alonso, who's a bit more defensive, and so they can form like a three, and that's why you can afford one of your fullbacks to be slightly more attacking. So I really do think he'll go with Olmedo.
Fede, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, he's the one that fits in perfectly in that sense. But you're gonna have to be you're gonna need a plan B ready right there. If it doesn't work in the first half, just like it happened against Venezuela, you're gonna have to have somebody ready just in case.
Yeah, I think so. It's a big task, man. Your first ever game, and you're gonna have to mark. I would assume it's probably gonna be Julian Alvarez or even Messi. I mean, that's the dream of a lot of these kids that want to play against them. And now you have the task of a kid. I saw the really nice photo, I think, from yesterday actually, when he was going to Aviroca, the headquarters in Ibané, of his mom giving the blessing right as he was heading to the training session. So I think that's gonna be a big factor on this one of like getting this kind of like sort of help, I would say, from a religious standpoint. I think the center back pairing, again, I think I don't think there's really much debate. I think we're gonna see Gustavo Gomez and Alderete. I think that sticks in. Left back, like you said, Ralph, that's a big one. I would assume it's going to be Junior Alonso, but you got Sandes there. You know, you got those players that could play. You have even Arsamendia that could play in that position if need be. But I think it is going to be Junior Alonso.
Yeah, he seems to be trusting Alonso, a player he's worked with before, guy who's just got to the Copa Libertadores final season, a good moment. I think he will go with that because it gives that balance I'm talking about. So Alonso's not going to get forward that much, although he did against Venezuela when it was needed. But I think he's going to be a much better player to defend that kind of area.
Yeah, Fede, are you team Alonso on this one?
Yeah, Agustin Santos hasn't shown me anything special ever since he put on this jersey yet. Santiago Arzamendia is fit for these 2 games. He wasn't available for the last combo, so he might have an opportunity. He might get minutes, but I do think it's Junior Alonso, the one that has fit in better in this defense. And I don't know if you guys saw the game against River, but he played a fantastic match. So I'm really happy with him, with his current form, and I do think he's going to start this game.
Looking at the midfield, I would assume that we're not going to see that ultra attacking that we saw in Venezuela when you had Ramon Sosa, Diego Gomez, Enciso, and Almiron. I don't think that's going to happen again. So I think we're going to switch back to that traditional, three midfield, three-man midfield. I would assume Diego Gomez will get the start for sure. Being able to take on one of his teammates in Lionel Messi. Obviously eliminated from Inter Miami, the MLS Cup playoffs. Andres Cubas, I think, has certainly become one of those really important players on the squad, let alone the midfield. He gets to start. I think it's Damian Bobadilla that might get that next spot as well in that midfield. I mean, that's certainly something. I mean, you have options. You have Villasante, you have Cacu Romero, you even have Ramon Sosa if need be, Matias Galarza. But I would assume your midfield of Gomez, Bobadilla, and Cubas is here to stay.
That's the hardest part, I believe, to figure out, actually. Just how are you going to mix it up in that midfield? What do you need for every game, right? I mean, Cubas is obviously the most defensive one, the one that gets you the ball back. But after that, I mean, who's the one that plays better alongside with him? It has been Damian Bobadilla lately. I do think he has been evolving and growing as a player. But you know that Villasante does not like being a sub, so he's gonna push his level, he's gonna push his minutes, he's gonna try to get his spot back because he has definitely lost it. And then you have Diego Gomez. Where do you fit him in? Do you put him in an offensive role in this team? Do you put him by the side? Do you put him next to Andres Cubas? He can definitely play in different places. So I think there's a lot of different formulas that you can play with, especially with what Argentina offers in that midfield. They're really good. They're very aggressive. They got a midfield that plays pretty much automatically with Enzo, with De Paul, McAllister, just like Roberto is mentioning. You got that championship midfield that you're going to have to try to take the ball away from. And I do think that's the key of the game, that winning that battle in the midfield, like Alfaro likes to say, right? And I really don't know where he's going to go with this one, Raf. I don't know which of the players that really fit the best to play against this World Cup champion team. What do you think?
Yeah, see, here's the question, because then are you thinking more about what's best for you or how to stop the opposition? And it's a balance, because of course you need to try and stop them to an extent, but you don't want to nullify all your attacking threats. So it is a really hard one. I mean, I think the two names, Andres Cubas and Diego Gomez, are in there, and it's that third player, and that would also decide Gomez's role, like we're talking about. Because if it's like a Villasanti, then Gomez is further forward. If it's a Bobadilla, then probably Bobadilla is further forward, and Gomez is more like doing more of the running. So it's a difficult one. The player that's really hurt Paraguay when they play against Argentina has been De Paul. I mean, De Paul has been so important because he's very physical. And for a long time, Paraguay didn't really have any midfielders that can match that. I think now they do in Diego Gomez, right? So that's maybe the task for Diego Gomez is going to be tight on De Paul, who has more mobility than Enzo and Alexis. And then it's more going to be, probably you can imagine Cuas and Enzo Fernandez coming together a bit, or Cuas and Messi when Messi drops. So Gomez will have that role, and then Bobadilla does have the legs to also cover. And Bobadilla, talking about players that are playing well in Brazil, because we mentioned Junior Alonso. I mean, Damian Bobadilla's numbers at the moment for Sao Paulo are really good. I mean, he's, in terms of ball winning, he's right up there, and he has that ability to win the ball up high, which is so important for teams like Alfaro with this transition. So I don't know. I think I think maybe we'll get the Cuas, Gomez, and Bobadilla, that midfield three.
It's going to be interesting to try to, like you said, Ralph, what is Paraguay trying to do? Are they trying to nullify that Argentina midfield for them to not go forward, or are they actually trying to see what works best for them to move forward? Because I think Paraguay definitely do want to go for that win. And looking at the attack real quick, I think again it's that big question mark of if it's going to be Tony, if it's going to be Pita, we don't know. I think the wingers are kind of an interesting discussion, because I think what we saw, and again, they haven't been playing that much in England in general, but you still feel, Ralph, that Enciso and Almiron are kind of your best options. I know Ramon Sosa has been getting some minutes, but it's been kind of a not the best of what we've seen so far in a Paraguay shirt from both of them. I think you could still see both Enciso and Almiron as kind of like your options in at winger. You have Angel Romero there if necessary. Obviously he was very vital for one of the goals that they scored against Venezuela. But I think from the start, I think you still have to go for those two, even if they still kind of cause a bit of debate. I think they've been doing well in these last few games, which has been credit to them. But you don't know. That's the really big fear in all of them. It's like you don't know what to expect from both of them.
Yeah, they're still missing, especially in CISO, still missing the final pass or the goal, right? I mean, it's the goals and assists. I think they're still not producing that. But at the same time, especially Almiron in a game like this is so important, because they just have the experience. They're tactically good enough. They're technically good enough. So I think for sure you have Almiron, and then you have to have Enciso, because regardless, he's not doing that final ball or that pass. He's so dangerous. And for Argentina as well, they can't afford not to defend him, because he's just so good. So I mean, it keeps the other team thinking, especially when you're gonna not have that much possession and play on the counter attack, which is of course gonna happen, because Argentina will dominate possession. There's no way Paraguay can hold the ball against the midfield we were just talking about. So Enciso's just like, so he's so dangerous to have, and you'll want to have him. Then what we'll see is, I'm sure Ramon Sosa will get a chance as well. Someone who's played in Argentina, doing very well, will also have the defense thinking. But I think you start for sure with Enciso and Almiron. And as I was saying before, I think with Pita as the main striker.
Yeah, Ramon Sosa played a really bad game against Venezuela. He was very well contained. Unfortunately, it was his first time to get that starting role, and he couldn't take advantage of it, right? I don't think he's going to get that opportunity against Argentina. And then you had, those game changers that, like we mentioned, against Venezuela, Antonio Sanabria coming in, and also Angel Romero, guys. I mean, he really opened it up And he could be, I think, an X factor in this game. I mean, either coming in as a sub or even starting. I do think he's gonna obviously back up Julio Enciso, even though what happened against Venezuela, even though he's not playing at Brighton, these last 2 games he hasn't gotten a single minute, which is something that's actually worrying people here. You know, what's his coach thinking about moving forward? Does he have an opportunity? He's not even playing, so it's not good for a player that's important for the national team to not get minutes. And I do think we were seeing the best from Miguel Almiron ever since Alfaro took over. He even said it after this last game against Venezuela. We finally have a coach that has everybody on board, that knows what to tell us. And Almiron has that important tactical job, you know, of running back and also sometimes going into that midfield to try to get the ball back. I love what I saw from him in that second half when the team needed to pick up also. And I think he's been one of the bright spots attacking in this team lately. They need to mix it up better with Diego Gomez. I think there's a chemistry there to build up with Diego Gomez, with Almiron, with Julio Enciso. I don't think we've seen the best out of these 3 yet playing together as a whole. So I think, you know, they got to play more together. I want to see more of that. And hopefully Tony Sanabria can back them up. I think it's that moment to mix them up, Roberto. It's that big, huge game to mix all that up. And after the huge win against Venezuela, that's actually what I'm expecting. Sosa to come out of this team and put another midfielder, just like we were talking about, Bobadilla or Villasanti. I think that's the big move. There's not many changes to be made in this team.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing in a way because, you know, obviously, like I said, when you have a team that knows how to play and has kind of gotten the confidence of both the coach and within themselves, I think they can beat anyone in the world if they want to. But certainly, it's not going to be one easy task against the world champions. It is going to be probably, you know, Messi's final time in the country. And looking at some of the history records, and actually another good one that Fede wanted to mention, they are the world champions, but Paraguay don't really have a good record actually against world champions. I was doing some math the other day, or at least like checking some stats. They've only won 5 times against a team from South America that were the reigning world champions. They've won 5 times. They drew 5. And this is in all competitions. This is not even a World Cup qualifier. And 12 losses. And looking at it all in general, they've never beaten a reigning world champion in a World Cup qualifiers. They've been close, but they've never beaten them. So you have that history. You also have someone like Lionel Messi who knows what it's like to score against Paraguay. He's scored 6 times. Sorry, he scored 5 times in I think 13 games against Paraguay in all competitions. So he knows what it's like to play against them. But Ralph, his record in Asuncion is not the strongest one, actually. He's only got 2 goals overall. I think it was only in that one game back in 2013 when they had already qualified and Paraguay already out for the 2014 World Cup. But in general, he does not have a good record in Asuncion. He's typically either, you know, aside from that one win, he's lost twice. You know, he's gotten a few draws. And this was, you know, a Messi that either was starting or was at his peak or, you know, currently at the minute. So, and I think that could come to an advantage because I think Paraguay definitely want that. They don't want to fear someone like Lionel Messi and, you know, even all these world champions that have come through. I mean, Argentina seems to have come to Asuncion various times in the past. And we've made it things difficult. That's why I think they consider them the most bitter rivals out of all of them in South America. They want to regain that history again. And I think Paraguay want another famous win like they did against Brazil last 2 months ago. I guess Venezuela, if you want to count as a famous one. I think they want this one too. And I think it would be the best of all of them to beat a world champion in a World Cup qualifier at home. I mean, that's with, you know, arguably the greatest player of all time. I mean, that's the stuff of dreams that Paraguay wants.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously what everybody's aiming for. And it's an interesting stat that they've never beaten a world champion in a World Cup qualifier. They've only beaten Argentina 16 times in 106 games. I mean, just to put it in perspective, Argentina's Paraguay's oldest rival. They first played each other in 1919, which was Paraguay's first ever international game. So it's been very difficult. But recently at home in the World Cup qualifiers, they've only lost once in this millennium, right? They've only lost once. It was that 5-2 that you mentioned when Paraguay was really at its worst. I think Peluso was the coach at the time. The goal scorers for Paraguay was Jose Ariel Núñez, who last I saw was playing in 3rd division, and Roque Santa Cruz. But Roque Santa Cruz was like, he was just playing to do a favor to Paraguay because it was basically nobody else that could score goals. And he was by then had returned to Paraguay. He was much older. He wasn't in Europe. So that's the only game Argentina has won this millennium. Is also in Asunción. It's also the only one that Messi's won, of course, and scored in. So you looked at, usually Paraguay give them a good game, and Messi himself has struggled. I always felt that when Paraguay played Argentina in World Cup qualifiers, the two players that gave us most problems attacking wise was Agüero and Di Maria. Di Maria used to always give Paraguay lots of problems. For whatever reason, they were very good at stopping Messi. So I'm hopeful that can continue. I mean, we know Messi's just coming on the back of a defeat with Inter Miami, where he's out. He has no more games now for 4 months. He has these 2 games, basically, these 2 World Cup qualifiers, and he has nothing. And unless Inter Miami do another crazy tour, which I'm sure they might do. But in terms of competitive games, he's got nothing left. He's coming at the end of, I think, what's been quite a hard last few months, where he had the injuries and where, you know, the Copa America was taking its toll and that kind of thing. And I also see this Argentina team in a similar way. The last time I saw Argentina was they were here in Houston in the Copa America, the draw against Ecuador, where they really just got through on penalties. And they didn't look particularly good that game. Since then, of course, they did go on to win the Copa America, but then we've seen them unable to win their last 2 away qualifiers, right? So they lost in Colombia, they drew in Venezuela. So there's something about this. It's still a great team, of course. It's still a great team. It's still got Messi, but it doesn't feel like the team of maybe a year ago, after they just won the World Cup and we're just wrapping up everything. There seems to be weaknesses people can get to. And I think the team itself is a bit tired, which happens with all great teams. We're talking at a time when Manchester City's just lost 4 games in a row. It can happen to everybody. So I think it's coming at a very good time. And like we say, Messi doesn't have this great record in Asunción. So it's all pointing to the possibilities that Paraguay could do very well.
That's a good mention. I actually want to go to Fede on this one and you know, obviously get your thoughts on how you feel about Argentina as well. But I think a lot of these players, you know, they're playing so many minutes. And, you know, I think we've kind of been critical of Paraguay not getting a lot of minutes. You look at Enciso, you look at Almiron, you look at someone like Sosa. That could actually be a big thing because you have players that obviously are much more. I mean, again, we need to see how they are, you know, from a sharpness point of view, if whatnot. But I think fitness wise, they're probably at 100%. Whereas for a lot of these Argentina players, where again, you know, they're really important players, they're established players, they know what it's like to play in multiple competitions. But maybe you fear that fatigue might come into them when they have to make these big trips compared to what Paraguay has done. So maybe that might be a factor. And like I think we even saw that in the game against Brazil, that we didn't see the best out of someone like Vinicius or Endrick or, you know, a lot of those, you know, attacking players. Maybe we see something similar for Argentina. I don't know. This is just my assumption, but I'm curious to see what you think, Fede.
Hopefully they're on a bad day. Hopefully they don't like Paraguay. It's going to be very humid, very hot this week. So hopefully that AC in the hotel doesn't work as it needs to be, and they feel it here. I do think we need to feel them uncomfortable somehow. They are the world champions, and you're gonna have to go hard against them. You might need to get that yellow card because you're gonna have to stop when they get clear opportunities. It's gonna be that kind of game, you know, similar to what we had against Brazil, I believe. But this team is better. This team has players that can really show up and make the difference. But I do get what you guys are saying. They've been playing so much. They're champions, and most of the players that weren't stars when this team wasn't a championship team are now stars in their clubs, right? And there's a lot of things expected from them. We're talking about, you know, the midfielder from Liverpool. We're talking about the midfielder from Chelsea. They started in every game. They have to play as much as they can. There's no rest for them. Julian Alvarez also has taken an important role in Atletico Madrid. They're all playing really well in their clubs, but yeah, they might be a little run out. Obviously, every coach that faces them right now wants to beat them because they are the world champions. So it's you're on the headliner if you beat Messi. If not, ask Atlanta United players. I was looking at the way they celebrated after beating Miami, and I don't know what kind of Messi we're gonna get, guys. Is he gonna be mad? Is he really unhappy for not going through? Is he going to be motivated because of that? Is he going to be distracted because he thought that, after these games, he was going to go back to Miami, play the playoffs, and that's not going to happen now. So, and in front of you, you're going to have Diego Gomez that has trained so many times with him, that has had the opportunity to see him. Diego also was he obviously was part of this elimination, but he got that individual award also last week. So being second in the votes, but I think there's a lot of Messi mania that's going to happen this week, and I want to see how Paraguay handles that. Outside of the stadium, inside the stadium during the game. I remember the last time they came here, and we even had fans running into the field trying to hug Messi, trying to get a picture. I don't know if that's going to happen again. Hopefully, police are all over that situation. Paraguay is looked at differently ever since, in 2030, we're going to have World Cup games here. So we have to take care of everything that happens around big games. And the Messi thing is going to be huge. There's going to be a lot of Argentinians that are going to come to Paraguay to try to see Messi, try to get a glimpse at him. And it's going to be really hard for that to happen. Last time they came, security was very tight, and you could only see Messi right there in the field. I repeat, I think we're going to have a Messi that's going to be mad at the world. He's going to try to show off. He's going to try to get every opportunity he can from a free kick. You're going to have to be all over him. Thankfully, there's a lot of players in this squad that have faced him before, especially in that defense. Gustavo Gomez, Junior Alonso, they've all had their opportunity to face him. So they got the experience. They know what they're going up against. And this is not the youngest Messi, guys. I mean, I'm not going to say Messi's old. I'm not going to say Messi's washed out, but you just got eliminated, buddy, from the MLS playoffs. So maybe Paraguay can beat you, actually.
He is Messi though, Ralph. That's the main thing. Doesn't matter if he's 18, he's 25, he's 37. It doesn't matter. It's still Messi. But I think Fede said, like mentioned, I don't think you want to make him angry. I don't think Paraguay will like him being angry. But who knows? I don't think Paraguay will feel intimidated in any case as well.
Yeah, that's right. I was just looking. I mean, since that 2013 loss, the 5-2. There's been, I think, 5 World Cup qualifiers. 2 were 0-0 draws. 1 1-1. Paraguay won 1 away, the Derlis Gonzalez goal, and then they lost 1, the most recent one, which was very not unlucky, but it was just really poor defending for the Otamendi. Like, you just didn't want Otamendi to be scoring on you in, I think it was like 3 minutes or 7 minutes. It was very early on in the game. So they've all been very tight games since Paraguay's come into some of this recovery phase, which I realize I'm talking about now 8-9 years. So it's been a long recovery, but they're usually tight games. This is, I think, the best Paraguay we've seen in a long time. Definitely, they're playing very well in Asunción, in Defensores del Chaco, not just under Alfaro, by the way. I mean, going back even to Berizzo, they were pretty good at home. What their problem at home was not winning the games they should have won, like against Bolivia's and Peru's, but they were pretty good against the big teams. So yeah, I'm confident. I mean, I think this is a great time for Paraguay to play Argentina for sure.
Definitely. But after that game, we have to go in probably as we say, the final boss of South America, really. Well, one of the final bosses, but definitely the most difficult of them all, really, in terms of, logistics and weather and whatnot. It's away to Bolivia. It's all the way to El Alto. This is another big one, Fed. I want to go to you on this one because I think obviously depending on how we get the result against Argentina, I think we're going to see a lot of players that are probably going to be exhausted of what they've done. Again, depending on how the results go. But now they have this big task of playing in altitude, playing above sea level. Was it 8,000 meters, 9,000 meters? I always forget these days. No, not even 4,000. Never mind. 13,000 feet. So yeah, I don't know what to expect from this one because obviously Bolivia have gotten a recent resurgence of form, certainly in this kind of the same way that Paraguay have done it. They got their wins against Venezuela at home. They beat Chile away in Santiago. They beat Colombia 1-0, a Colombia team that obviously didn't lose a single game, but then they got smacked 6-0 by Argentina in Buenos Aires, which I think was expected. I didn't expect it to be 6-0. They have to play Ecuador and Guayaquil before this game, but I don't know how to feel about this one. I mean, again, history's on the line for this one. The last time that Paraguay had beaten Bolivia was in 1973. So 51 years since then, Fede. So there is that history. And typically Paraguay do not have a good record in Bolivia. They've after that win, they drew 3 times, but then they've lost 5 straight times since 2004. I don't know what to expect on this one. I mean, this is going to be really difficult to really ask for a win.
Looking at the history, looking at the records, you can expect a loss there because we have not done well at all, and players don't feel comfortable up there and playing, and that ball really moves fast. You can't stop it. Even though I loved what I saw from Gatito Fernandez the last time around and against Ecuador, he had a really good job with that ball. Even though they smashed it several times from outside of the box, and I do think you're gonna need your goalkeeper to have another big game like that one. Set up a very defensive team to counterattack and put your fastest players out there in attack to try to wear them out eventually and have those opportunities. I expect players that won't have that many minutes against Argentina to be healthy 100% and ready for that game against Bolivia. And obviously you have Alfio Oviedo, who was the only one that was eventually called up. There was a lot of rumors in Bolivia even about players from the National League that were going to be called up. That would have been kind of weird to see a local national team, players that play only in Bolivia that are never called up to the national team just for this game, as kind of to do the country a favor or something like that. But they were reserved. They were there as an option. Alfaro took that into consideration, but he didn't end up calling any of them. It was only Alfio Oviedo who was already called up in these last 2 games. So he's been getting him ready because he didn't get any minutes in those last 2 games. I don't think he's going to play against Argentina either. I think he's getting him ready for this game against Bolivia. So he's definitely going to have a starting role and an important role in this team of trying to hold that ball, even for the team to try to get some oxygen and have some time of recovery, because you have to be smart up there. I mean, they don't only play fast. Not only does the ball move fast, they try to get you to not have any rest whatsoever during the game. So you're gonna need those experienced players that have already been there, that have already played there. And hopefully we can get something out of this last game of this 2024. But my expectations are very low, Roberto. I've seen it over and over again in Bolivia, and now even in this altitude, which is even higher than we were playing before. Nobody has won yet, and Bolivia has felt really comfortable with players that play there. They don't use players from abroad. They're using players that play there. So they're taking clear advantage of their home ground.
Yeah, it's been 5 defeats in a row, not even getting ties. Paraguay's tried everything. There was this crazy time where they spent 3 weeks in Bolivia training ahead of the game with local based players, and they still lost 3-1. They've gone with the different tactic this time because there's all different tactics of how to manage it. So Paraguay's actually going to be a day before in Cochabamba, which is at altitude, but not at the kind of altitude of La Paz or El Alto. And so they'll do that training session, and then I guess that evening they go up to La Paz, ready for the game the next day in El Alto. So they're kind of looking at how they can offset some of the advantage, but honestly, I think it's going to be very difficult. And ultimately, what we saw from Alfaro by choosing the squad he chose of making no changes or no major changes is that he's focused more on the Argentina game and also kind of keeping the squad together, because you've got that good moment, that great attitude, and the psychological effect we're talking about. So he doesn't want to break that up, I think, at the risk of not getting the result anyway. I also think, by the way, it's an easy game to lose and still keep that momentum going, the psychological, I mean, because you're going to go up there. It's like going to be a battle. You're battling against things, non-footballing things, in the sense of the altitude and the conditions. So there's all these different things going on. And I think it builds a bit of resilience in the end if Paraguay lose this game, knowing that they've still got the chance to be one of the kind of be in there, and they've only lost because of non-footballing reasons.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's certainly a big task, especially given, let's say Fede, they do get the win against Argentina. I think, like, Ralph has said, I think we can afford to lose as much as Paraguay don't want to. I think, it's difficult to really ask for a win. I think even away to Brazil is also, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. I think the same thing could be said for Bolivia as well. But yeah, if they get the win against Argentina, and even if they, I think the big factor is if they do lose, that they don't lose badly, because I think that goal difference is going to be a big factor heading into those important games later down the road next year.
I think I haven't done the math, guys. I haven't taken my calculator out yet, but if we win every game at home, are we in the next World Cup? That might be a possibility, right? Because as of right now, we're in a very good spot, and we still have to face some of these teams. So I do think that, just like Ralph was saying, the strategy behind it all is Alfaro aiming for this game against Argentina, just trying to build momentum and just showing the world and show his team that they're ready for these kind of tasks. I mean, if you're going to the World Cup, you don't have to beat Bolivia. You have to play well against teams like Argentina, because that's the level that you have to try to achieve. And I think it's going to show the team itself that, after winning against Venezuela, we're ready for this. And let's take this task. Let's try to beat Argentina, not just defend and try to get a result. So I'm really looking forward to this opportunity that the Paraguay has ahead of them. And yeah, maybe expect a draw or even a bad result against Bolivia. That's not going to leave us down there. But if we don't get anything out of these two games, are we done? No, not at all. I think we're going to start off the year just with the same opportunities, and we're going to look forward. That's not going to change the world. I think we beaten the teams that we needed to beat before, and we're on a good streak. Let's try to just build from that.
It's very difficult, to really, kill a team or even hype up a team. I think certainly Paraguay deserve its hype, as they should, because they're doing well, but we're not the World Cup yet. That's the end. And we're at the same level of being, you know, in the World Cup as out of it. It's basically, we're not basically in anything. So it's kind of like that purgatory session in the middle. But that being said, there's still games ahead. Like I put in the chat here, they got Chile, Uruguay, and Ecuador at home, winnable games. That's 9 points. They still got to play Argentina, so that's 12 points at in play there, and they have 13. That's 25 points that could be given to them. That puts them to the World Cup. Even if they do lose all their away games, they got Colombia, they got Peru, and they got Brazil left. Of course, they got Bolivia. So yeah, technically, Fede, if they do win all those home games, they are in the World Cup. It doesn't even have to happen what happens away. But I'm sure they still want to go for it, as obviously we go now to our final segment of the show, the predictions, the big ones. What are we going to go here? I mean, obviously, I have to go first, dude. That's what you're saying. Oh, I'm putting it. Oh, God. Wow. Okay.
You got it right last time. You got to go first, buddy.
I've gotten all the predictions right so far, actually. I've predicted every single correct result, some even scores as well. So, okay. All right. I'll go for the easier game. As crazy as it sounds, the easiest of the two to predict. Paraguay have been able to get these wins against Argentina, Venezuela. I've really been impressed so far with what we've seen. I think, the big task ahead of them is to obviously get these results at home. I think there has been some level of pessimism, as always. Sometimes, when you're taking on big teams, like, okay, I think this is where Paraguay's luck kind of ends out. It hasn't yet. And that's the thing. This team is riding on a high. So I don't even think this is even a bold prediction. It might be bold for the neutrals or those that maybe aren't too in tune of what Paraguay has been doing aside from results. But if you look at history, if you look at kind of this like raising their level, I think Paraguay can do it. I think Paraguay are going to beat Argentina. I'm going to say it right there. It's going to be one of those really tight games, similar to the old Paraguay games that we always play against Argentina. I see that kind of level. So I'm going to say Paraguay are going to win 1-0. And I think it's going to be Tony Sanabria that's going to be the hero once again against Argentina, kind of the revenge game, if you want to say that. Even makes it even a revenge game. But I think Tony puts himself in the pantheon of the famous heroes that have beaten Argentina, Darius Gonzalez, Roque Santa Cruz, Cabañas, Aedo Valdez, even players like Toro Acuna, who scored against them. Chilavert, big game. He scored against Argentina as well. I think Tony now enters into that pantheon of players who've been able to get famous results against Argentina, and we get the 3 points over there in Sajonia. Fede, what do you say? You're going to be there. It's going to be a packed house. Everyone is really expectant of this game. What says you?
nobody cares about my predictions. You're the guys that have been hitting it lately. But no, if I got to get mine, I'm going with the win again. I've been riding high with this team. This team has me motivated, has me hungry again for another World Cup after so long, and I'm rooting for this team. Obviously, I want them to beat Argentina. We beat in Brazil not long ago, so why not expect something like that? And again, a huge showdown from our team and a big game from several players that I think have kind of deserved this opportunity to shine in a game like this one. I want a header. I want a goal from a set piece from one of our defenders, maybe Omar Alderete or Junior Alonso might score in this game. And then obviously Argentina, it's going to be very hard for them not to score. I think Messi's going to show eventually something in this game, maybe have an assist or even score. Julian Alvarez might get a goal. I think one of those two are going to get on the score sheet. So up to there, I have a draw, but then Paraguay is going to win it. It's going to be a 2-1. And I want to see it happening from Julio Enciso. I want Julio Enciso to score that second goal, guys. That's my dream. Just players that have really been standing out but haven't been able to score lately. I want Julio to get his revenge, obviously, in this time where there's a lot of talk of him not playing in his club, of what happened against Venezuela. I want to see him score. I want to see him have his moment. Diego Gomez had his moment against Brazil. I want it to happen for Julio Enciso against Argentina and for us to beat the world champions.
Good that you mentioned Enciso, because I haven't seen him playing against Argentina, actually. The last time they did, he was injured. So this is another big opportunity for him to take on the world champions. He takes on one of his ex-teammates in Alex McAllister and Facundo Buonanotte, who was actually on the Paraguay side as well, Argentina squad as well. So yeah, a big level for him to get at. It's a big task for him. But Ralph, are you in agreement or are you going to be in disagreement for one of the predictions?
This is strange, but I'm in agreement. Where all three of us are now saying Paraguay will beat Argentina, which is like it seems strange, but it shows you how far we've come in this short time under Gustavo Alfaro, that we all feel we can get the result. I think looking at it, the way games have gone recently, I think it will be 1-0. I think it will be a very tight game. I don't know why. I also have a feeling for Julian Enciso. I remember so much the Derlis Gonzalez goal that wins it in, I think was it in Cordoba? I can't remember. It was in Cordoba. It wasn't in Buenos Aires. So that was such a big moment. And it was like for him also like getting rid of a lot of bad feeling, I think, that he was having at the time. There was a big debate about who wears a number 10 jersey for Paraguay. Lots of all of this kind of stuff going on. And I think for Enciso, it could be that similar kind of moment, and it could be via the penalty spot, where of course he missed in the last game. I have that feeling if there's a penalty against Argentina, Enciso will be the first to want to take it.
Do it against Dibu Martinez? Really? Are you putting him?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's gonna want that ball. He's gonna want it.
He'll want it more because it's against Dibu. Yeah, that's just the kind of mentality he has. And so I could have a feeling 1-0, a penalty from Enciso, and Paraguay are winning against the world champions for the first time in a World Cup qualifier.
Man, that would be huge. That's, like you said, Fede, like every time like these players are winning, they're always on the front covers of newspapers. I mean, that's billboard stuff. That's commercial. That's everything. That might change his life again, like he did in that move to Brighton. So it's a big task. And I think, it's not out of consideration, really, just because of the history, because of the way Paraguay have been doing, the way that Argentina, they are vulnerable. Like, this isn't an invincible team. This isn't a team that can just beat everyone. They have flaws like any other team that does. It doesn't matter if they're a world champion or not. They have flaws. And so I think there is that fact. I think Argentina will feel the same way too. I think just that assumption of, I think a lot of the history of taking on Paraguay, going to Asunción, it's always been difficult games against them. So I think there is that level of intimidation that's actually, kind of interesting that a world champion might feel that way. But I think there is that intimidation. It's like, oh no, it's Paraguay again. It's like that bogey team. It's always a difficult game. I know all of you guys have always spoken to Argentines before, and they probably feel the same way. They'll say, no, it's gonna be a tough game. I don't know if we're gonna get a win. So yeah, I'd say for all of us, I'm happy that we're all in agreement. Let's see if we're in agreement in this one, though. The Bolivia game in El Alto. Like I said, it's been 51 years since Paraguay have won a World Cup qualifier in Bolivia. Again, 5 consecutive losses in a World Cup qualifier there. I think it's going to be a 6-1 for me. I don't see how Paraguay, coming off a big win against Argentina, will they have the energy and the momentum to get something? If they get a draw, it would be huge. It would be absolutely huge to get a draw over there in El Alto, because not a lot of teams win there, let alone get points. But I think, yeah, I think it's just going to be too much of a task. I don't think they're going to get blown out. I think they have something in their wit, but I don't see it. I'm gonna say 2-0 Bolivia. Ralph?
I think we might score. So I'll go 3-1 Bolivia. Yeah, I can't see Paraguay getting anything from that game.
Fede,
I'm just
I mean,
gonna
look,
I'm just
yeah,
gonna go straight with my heart, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna say a draw. I'm gonna go against you guys. I'm gonna go with a draw. A 2-2 draw actually. And I want to see the players from the altitude coming forward in this game. I want to see Alfio Oviedo and Alex Arce make it happen with the goals. You know, they're the ones that should feel comfortable up there. I actually expect even Ramon Sosa maybe to have an opportunity. He's one of those players that can run everywhere and put all the gas out there, especially after what happened with him against Venezuela. I think he's going to get that opportunity of, you know, try to come back, try to do something with this team. And it might be in the altitude if he doesn't have an important role in this with this team against Argentina. I don't know. I'm expecting those kind of players to come in this game, and it's going to be a 2-2 draw. That's the way I see it. And it's a fantastic result from my side, at least.
I mean, come on, dude. You're going unbeaten in 6 games for Paraguay. That's well, just trying to do my basic math here, but you know, you're getting 3 wins and then, you know, 3 draws, all of them away. Man, I mean, I think you should get ready to book your tickets if that's the case. But again, I think regardless of what happens to Paraguay, I think their World Cup dream is still not in danger as of yet. I think there's still a long way to go, a lot of games going on. But yeah, let's hope that Paraguay can actually. I mean, look, if they get 2 wins, then it's a national holiday. But still, I think it's it's going to be really interesting to see what Paraguay do in these 2 games. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure both you guys are. You know, we obviously have the coverage we always do here on Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.